It's hard to believe that it's already March. It just seems like Christmas was the other day. It is a reminder how fast life goes, and we seem in some way to almost lose contact with one day after another simply because the calendar pages go so very quickly. And it is a reminder that Lent is an opportunity to slow down the pace of our lives that can become so very hectic, filled with all sorts of demands on us, activities. And of course, the marketplace would like us to make sure that we attend to the newest invention out there and be treated like consumers. We know as well that it's very easy to lose a sense of our lives and the wholeness of life fitting together because of that fast pace. So Lent is an opportunity to slow down, to be more contemplative, meditative about how our lives fit together. When we do that, we begin to recapture our identity of who we are. It's very easy for us to live in an environment today, especially the political environment that we see, that wants to identify us as part of a voting bloc or maybe some sort of a group that is identified individually by a political situation. I think it's very easy to fall into the trap of tribal politics, where we begin to lose our identity because we almost give ourselves over to being a part of the herd. Lent is an opportunity to recapture what it means for us to say that I believe in Jesus as the center of my life, reclaim our identity. I've always liked that story of Moonstruck, that movie some years ago, where the mother of the family found out that her husband was cheating on her, so she decided to go out to dinner one night. And she met up with a man who walked her home afterwards. And as they got to her house, he says, "Well, aren't you going to invite me to come up?" "Oh," she said, "I can't do that. I'm a married woman." And he said, "Well, but your husband's not being faithful to you. What does it matter?" And she looked at him and said, "Because I know who I am. I know who I am." That is what Lent asks us to recapture, our identity of who we are, to make sure that we continue to allow the individuality of our lives and also the commitments that we have made as Christians to be the overwhelming program of our lives. But it's also an opportunity to reflect on those many moments of grace that came through other people. In our youth, our teenage years, as we grew up as adults, we were able to take up some big challenges in life and meet some difficulties because others were sent in our path by God as a real grace to allow our lives to in some way overcome those difficulties, and to allow that time of meditation during the season just to sit before God and give thanks for all the people who saw us through difficulties. That way we can slow down our lives, because we can not just be whipsawed into a life that is so hectic by the demands of this moment, but connect with the things of the past that have enriched our lives. But it's also an important opportunity for us, especially in this year in which we are having a Eucharistic revival, to recall how the Eucharist itself is that moment of memorial about who we are in our lives and the big picture of humanity that we fit into. Because the Eucharist is a memorial in which we recall that the worst thing in the world that could happen has happened. And God took it, and not to condemn us and punish us, but to save us. Because the worst thing in the world that happened was that God sent His only Son into the world to save us, and we nailed Him to a cross. And yet God took that terrible event and saved us as a result. That is what we do at the Eucharist, as Jesus says, "Do this in memory of me," as He said, "This is my body, this is my blood." When we have that kind of reflective attitude about our lives, whether it's about recapturing who we are as individuals, disciples of Jesus, or the ways in which God has blessed us through others, and yes, even at the Eucharist, when we take time to reflect on those blessings that have come in so many different ways, then we are freed from the anxiety and the fears and doubts about the future, which can invade our hearts. Because we know that God, who is faithful to us in the past, will continue to be faithful to us in the future. So today, let's slow down this season of Lent, to be more reflective as the disciples were in the gospel, who recalled what Jesus did when he cleansed that temple, and were put in touch with how he made a difference in their lives. It is an opportunity for us to remember who we are, how God has graced us with so many people, but also, as we celebrate the Eucharist, to recall that the worst thing in the world that could possibly happen did, and yet God turned it around and used it to save us.